In the 1800s, people ate foods that could slowly poison them, not because they were reckless, not because they didn't care about their health, but because they simply didn't know any better. At that time, the idea of food safety barely existed. There were no strict regulations, no inspections, no ingredient labels, no way to truly know what you were putting into your body. Refrigeration, as we know it today, didn't exist. In most places, food had to be consumed quickly, or it would spoil. And when it spoiled, it didn't just taste bad. It became dangerous. But even then, people still ate it, because they had no choice. For many families, especially in growing cities, food was not about quality. It was about survival. You ate what you could afford, and often, that came with consequences. Some foods were already rotten by the time they were sold. Others were secretly mixed with chemicals to improve their appearance. And some were altered in ways that made them quietly toxic. Not always intentionally, but often knowingly. Because for many producers, profit mattered more than safety. And the people buying this food had no way of knowing the truth. This is the story of the most dangerous foods people used to eat in the 1800s. And what makes it even more unsettling is how normal it all seemed at the time. There was no panic, no outrage, just everyday life. People trusted what they ate. They trusted the markets. They trusted the system. And that trust came at a cost. Sometimes a slow decline in health, sometimes irreversible damage, and sometimes death. And by the end of this video, you'll understand just how dangerous something as simple as food used to be. Let's start with something simple, something so ordinary, so common, that we rarely even think about it. Bread. Today, bread is one of the safest foods you can eat. It's regulated, tested, produced under strict conditions. But in the 1800s, bread could quietly destroy your body. In many parts of Europe and America, bread was a daily necessity. For the working class and the poor, it was often the foundation of every meal. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Bread was always there. It was cheap, filling, accessible, and because of that, demand was incredibly high. But with high demand came an opportunity for profit. And not everyone chose to make that profit honestly. At the time, white bread was seen as superior. It was associated with wealth, cleanliness, and higher quality. The whiter the bread looked, the more desirable it became. But naturally, white flour was more expensive to produce. So instead of improving quality, many producers chose a different path. They started adding substances to their flour. Substances that had no place in food. Chalk, sawdust, ground bones, even plaster. These materials changed the appearance of the bread, made it look whiter, smoother, more refined, and customers believed they were buying something better. But in reality, they were buying something dangerous. People who consumed this bread regularly began to experience strange symptoms. At first, it didn't seem serious. A bit of discomfort, mild stomach pain, fatigue that could be explained away. But over time, those symptoms became harder to ignore. Persistent digestive issues, weakness that didn't go away, a general decline in health. Some even suffered long-term damage to their internal organs. Doctors at the time struggled to understand what was happening. There was no clear cause, no obvious explanation, because no one suspected the bread. Bread was considered safe, essential, something you could rely on. And that's what made the situation so dangerous. People were being poisoned by the very thing they depended on to survive. And they had no idea. Now imagine buying meat in the 1800s. You walk into a local market. The butcher greets you. There are cuts of meat hanging in the open air. At first glance, everything seems normal, fresh even, but in reality, that meat may have already begun to rot. Before refrigeration, keeping meat fresh was a constant challenge, especially during warmer months. Heat accelerated decay, and without proper storage, meat could spoil very quickly, sometimes within a single day. But throwing away spoiled meat meant losing money, and for many sellers, that wasn't an option. So instead of discarding it, they found ways to disguise it, to make it appear fresh, to make it sell. One of the most common methods was using chemicals, substances that could mask the smell of decay. or preserve the appearance of the meat. Formaldehyde, boric acid, chemicals that should never be anywhere near food. These substances didn't make the meat safe. They didn't stop the decay. They simply hid it, covered the smell, delayed the visible signs of spoilage. So customers couldn't tell the difference. People would buy this meat, take it home, cook it, eat it with their families, completely unaware of what they were consuming. And the most dangerous part? It often didn't taste obviously bad, which meant there was no warning sign, no immediate reason to stop eating it. Over time, people who regularly consumed such meat began to suffer. Digestive issues, food poisoning, long-term health problems, in some cases, severe illness, even death. But again, no one suspected the source, because meat was supposed to be safe if it looked fine, and the sellers made sure that it always looked fine. Milk was even worse. In rapidly growing cities during the 1800s, getting fresh, clean milk was extremely difficult. There were no reliable delivery systems, no refrigeration to keep it from spoiling. And yet, milk was in high demand, especially for children, especially for infants. It was seen as essential for growth and survival. But the reality behind that milk was far from safe. To meet the demand, producers came up with a disturbing solution. They created something known as swill milk. This milk came from cows that were kept in terrible conditions. Instead of grazing on grass, these animals were fed the leftover waste from distilleries. Hot, fermented grain mash, a substance never meant for animals to consume long-term. The cows became weak, sick, sometimes unable to even stand properly. Their bodies deteriorated over time, but they were still used, still milked, because they were part of a system designed for profit, not health. The milk they produced was nothing like fresh milk. It was thin, watery, often gray or slightly bluish in color. It had a foul smell, and it lacked the nutrients that real milk should have. But instead of discarding it, producers decided to fix it. They added chalk to make it look whiter. They added starch to make it appear thicker, sometimes even chemicals to improve its appearance and extend its shelf life. What they created was not milk. It was an imitation, a dangerous one, and yet it was sold across cities, delivered to homes, given to families, to children, to babies. Parents trusted it. They believed they were feeding their children something healthy, something necessary, but instead, they were unknowingly putting them at risk. Thousands of infants became sick after consuming this milk. Some developed severe digestive issues. Others suffered from malnutrition. Their bodies simply couldn't handle what they were given, and many didn't survive. At the time, the connection wasn't always clear. There were reports. Doctors noticed patterns, but without proper knowledge or regulation, the problem continued. Milk, something so basic, had become one of the most dangerous products in the city. Let's talk about something that should have been harmless. Candy. Sweet, colorful, something associated with joy, especially for children. But in the 1800s, candy could be deadly. As cities grew and markets became more competitive, appearance became everything. Bright colors attracted attention. They made products stand out. And in the case of candy, they made it more appealing. Manufacturers began experimenting with pigments, trying to create the most vibrant, eye-catching sweets possible. One of the most popular colors was green, a bright, almost unnatural green. It looked beautiful, exotic, different. But what most people didn't know was where that color came from. Arsenic, a well-known poison, highly toxic, capable of causing severe illness or death. It wasn't uncommon at the time. Arsenic was used in many products: wallpaper, clothing dyes, paint, even toys. But when it was used in food, the consequences became immediate. People who consumed these candies often experienced symptoms quickly: nausea, vomiting, severe abdominal pain, in some cases, convulsions, and in the worst cases, death. And the most disturbing part? These candies looked completely harmless, even attractive. Children were especially vulnerable, drawn to the bright colors, unaware of the danger. There were cases where entire families became sick after consuming contaminated sweets. But again, there was little understanding of why. No clear warnings, no labels, no regulations to prevent it. Candy, something meant to bring joy, had become a hidden threat. Now imagine drinking alcohol in the 1800s, not just for pleasure, but as a necessity. In many areas, clean drinking water was not always available, or was unsafe, contaminated. So people turned to alcohol. It was believed to be safer, more reliable, and for many, it became part of daily life. But not all alcohol was what it seemed. Cheap alcohol, especially, was often tampered with. Producers looked for ways to increase profit, to make stronger drinks at a lower cost. And sometimes, they simply didn't care about safety. Industrial alcohol was used, a substance not meant for human consumption. Cleaning chemicals, unknown additives, anything that could increase volume or strength. Without regard for consequences, these substances made the alcohol more dangerous, far more dangerous than people realized. Those who consumed it regularly began to suffer. At first, the effects might have seemed minor. Dizziness, headaches, unusual fatigue. But over time, the damage became more severe. Vision problems, partial or complete blindness, organ damage, particularly to the liver and nervous system, and in some cases, sudden death. Yet despite all this, people continued to drink, because for many, it was an escape, a way to cope with difficult lives, long working hours, poverty, stress. Alcohol provided temporary relief, even if it came at cost. And just like with food, people trusted what they were consuming. They didn't question it. They didn't know the risks. And that lack of knowledge made it all the more dangerous. Vegetables weren't always safe either. In fact, even something as simple as pickles could become dangerous. Pickled vegetables were extremely common in the 1800s. They were cheap, easy to store, and could last much longer than fresh food. For many families, they were a reliable source of nutrition during difficult times. But just like with other foods, appearance mattered. Bright colors made products more appealing, more desirable, and in a competitive market, that meant more profit. Naturally, pickles should have had a dull, slightly faded green color, but that didn't attract attention. So, some producers decided to enhance their appearance. They added copper salts, chemicals that gave pickles a bright, vibrant green color. The result looked fresh, almost perfect, but it came at a cost. Copper, in small amounts, can be tolerated by the body, but in larger quantities, it becomes toxic. People who regularly consumed these pickles began to experience symptoms: nausea, vomiting, sharp abdominal pain, and in more serious cases, poisoning. But once again, the connection wasn't obvious. People didn't suspect the food because it looked good, it looked fresh, and that illusion was enough. Even tea, one of the most widely consumed drinks in the world, wasn't always safe. Tea was incredibly popular in the 1800s. It was part of daily life, a routine, a habit, something people trusted. But as demand increased, so did the opportunities for deception. Used tea leaves were often collected after being brewed. Instead of being discarded, they were dried, processed, and resold. But it didn't stop there. To make them look fresh again, they were sometimes dyed, colored with chemicals, sometimes even toxic metals. This gave the illusion of quality, of freshness, of something new. But in reality, it was a recycled product, a product that had already been used, and now enhanced with substances that could be harmful. People drank this tea every day, believing it was safe, believing it was normal. But over time, the effects could build up, slowly, silently, just like many other foods of that era. Now here's something even more disturbing. People knew something was wrong. They just didn't know what. There were reports of illness, strange symptoms that didn't have clear explanations. Entire families becoming sick, communities noticing patterns. But without knowledge, without science, without proper investigation, there were no answers. And food was not something you could avoid. It was essential. You couldn't just stop eating. You couldn't simply choose safer options, because those options didn't exist. There were no standards, no inspections, no systems in place to protect people. So life continued. People adapted. They accepted what they had, even if it was dangerous. But over time, things began to change. Slowly, As science developed, people started to ask questions. Researchers began studying food more closely. Doctors started connecting the dots between what people ate and how it affected their health. Investigations were conducted, reports were written, and gradually, awareness began to spread. The idea that food could be dangerous became undeniable, and eventually, action was taken. Laws were introduced, regulations were created, standards were established, inspections became part of the system, and for the first time, there was an effort to protect consumers, to ensure that food was safe, to prevent the kinds of practices that had once been so common. But back then, none of that existed. Every meal was a risk. Every bite, a gamble. People didn't just depend on food to survive. They depended on trust. Trust that what they were eating was safe. Trust that it wouldn't harm them. But that trust was often misplaced. So the next time you eat something simple, like a piece of bread, or drink a glass of milk, take a moment to think about this. There was a time when even the most basic foods could quietly kill you. Not instantly, not obviously, but slowly, silently, over time, and millions of people had no choice but to eat them anyway. Because in the 1800s, food wasn't just nourishment, it was survival, and sometimes it was deadly.